Welcome, everyone, to this evening's postgame press conference with head coach Joe Gallo of the Merrimack College men's basketball program following this evening's 62-51 Northeast Conference win over Fairleigh Dickinson. Coach, would you mind just starting things off with an opening statement?
Yeah, it was. I thought we had our best week of practice. Not that we've had many weeks of practice, but it was. Our practices looked a lot more like Merrimack practices of the past, and then it carried over to the game looking a lot more like what we're all used to, a Merrimack game looking like, right? Defending, controlling tempo, getting a lead and then executing late under 4 minutes. So that looked a lot more like a team that I envisioned.
We'll open it up with questions, and we'll start with Mike McMahon.
Hey, Coach. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Coming off of last week, I mean, you talked about how this week was a much better week of practice, but how much do you think last week was a little bit of a wake-up call to go down a mountain and just not have the success you wanted 2 games in a row? How much did it feel like that was maybe a little bit of a wake-up call going into this week?
Yeah, I think it definitely was. After losing 2 in a row, something, the way the week's set up, we always have the following day off after back-to-backs, and then we kind of have a lift and some film session. So I was a little nervous that by the time Monday came, the sting of the sweep would have wore off, but the guys still had a edge to them by Monday, and kind of tired of losing is what they showed at practice. So I wasn't sure if we were going to win or lose tonight, but I knew our effort, especially on the defensive end, would be much better.
Next question, Ian Beauchene.
Coach, how we doing? We talked earlier today. You wanted some more meat and potato kind of minutes out of some of your guys. Do you felt like you kind of got that, especially coming out of the locker room in the second half after maybe not having the ideal performance that you were looking for coming out in the first 20 tonight?
Yeah, and that's we've been in that situation in the past before. We went 2 for 14 from 3, had some good looks, but because we defended, we were down 28-25. So usually in halves like that, as a staff, you're comfortable going into the second half because you just had an awful shooting performance. You were getting great looks, and usually the way the game pans out, whoever gets better looks over a course of 40 minutes is usually going to win the game. So, we got a lot of the same looks in the second half as we did in the first half. We just knocked them
down. Grant, you have a question for Coach?
Yes. Thanks, Coach. I'm Grant Fluff from Insider Institute. And my first question to you is, you've been successful playing against this team for quite a while. What's the key to that?
This FDU team? You know what? I don't know. They've all been last year. One was in double overtime. Another one came down to 1 or 2 possession games. So I don't think there's any. It's a little contrast in style. They want to play really fast. We don't, and it's kind of who wins out there. Little nip and tug for the tempo. But we've been able to close all 3 times we've played them. Now we've been able to close. I thought, last year with under 4 to go, it would be kind of Javaris Hayes' time. This year we have to manipulate it some different ways. And, we had a great backdoor cut along the baseline. We had a great flare screen for Michael who knocked down a 3. So it's going to have to look a little bit different now, closing time, than it has in the past. But I give our guys credit. They really executed it down the stretch.
Next, we'll go to Mike McMahon. Mike McMahon.
We talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, but again, scoring pretty much spread out, 3 guys in double figures. I mean, is this kind of what you envision offensively you guys will look like, being able to attack a little bit inside, a little bit outside, kind of just being really balanced there?
Yeah, and I thought we took more, like only 12 assists on 23 field goals, but even most of our misses would have been assists. I thought we've been taking it was a little bit of a curse scoring 97 points the first game of the year against Sacred Heart. We've taken way too many kind of ISO-ish long twos off the dribble, kind of unassisted buckets. So we really emphasize driving and kicking, throwing it into zig and minor, and then, not always having to score in there. Sometimes throwing it in to throw it back out is a really good play for us. So I was really happy that, outside of the first half when we threw them the ball 9 times, we only had 4 turnovers in the second half. Our key was if we could just not throw them the ball, we thought we'd be able to get a good shot.
And we'll go back to Ian Beauchene.
Coach, can you kind of just talk about Mike Hell's night? He had set a career high tonight with 19 points, and I thought he really showed a lot of collectiveness there, especially in that second half when you guys kind of started to go to him and ride the hot hand a little bit more. You want to just kind of speak to his performance tonight and how you kind of seen him develop?
Yeah, that's kind of he's another guy who he had a great practice yesterday. He was hunting them way more. I thought early in the first half he passed a couple up, but one of the keys was shoot your shot, and we tell him and Dev Jensen, if you're open, you got to let it fly. Sometimes that's even Dev from 30 feet out sometimes is one of the better shots for us. So Mikel's a guy that when we recruited, he made over 100 threes at Proctor Academy his senior year at close to 50%. So he struggled percentage-wise last year, kind of had a tough role. It was, 8-10 minutes a game. If he came in and made one, he'd stay in. If he didn't, he'd come out, and that's sometimes a tough way to live. But knowing he's got a little more rope this year and a little more confidence in himself, I'm hoping we can get some more performances like that out of him.
Next question, Mike McMahon.
Going into tomorrow, I mean, it's been a couple of weeks now of kind of these back-to-backs. Do you feel like you're getting more into a groove? Do you feel like the guys are getting more into a groove of just kind of knowing kind of the pace of the schedule, coming back with a 4:00 game after a 7:00 game? Now that you've been doing it, does it feel like it's more of the normal?
Yeah, it's definitely more routine. They're in there, they're in the weight room right now doing some foam roll, chugging waters. We got to get Mikey Watkins a case of bananas because he was cramping up there at the end of the game with, how hard he plays and how many minutes he plays. But yeah, I think we're in a pretty good routine. We'll walk through some stuff. Not a whole lot to change for tomorrow. These back-to-backs, I think, are a lot less game plan and a lot more who shows up ready to fight.
We'll go next question, Ian Beauchene.
Coach, just kind of following up, you brought up earlier today, again, the ability to defend and not pass up the easy shot in order to make a perfect play. Do you feel like you guys did a little bit of a better job of that tonight, taking the easier shot when it presented itself to you instead of kind of forcing things when it maybe didn't have to?
I did in the second half and probably the last 10 minutes of the first half, but early on, again, it was back to passing up a three that led to a travel, or passing up a three that led to a turnover. And like we talked about earlier, the one stat that we've been getting crushed on is the 3-point game. And, I wanted to take more, which we did. I'd love to make more. But, we limited them to 4 for 16 from the 3, and they made the last 2 kind of in garbage time with under 2 minutes to go. So we really held them without a 3-point field goal. For a team that wants to shoot a lot of threes, we held them without a 3-point field goal in the second half until about 2 minutes left.
All right. Any more questions for Coach? Yeah, Grant.
I'm
go
good.
ahead.
Yeah, this is my last question. Looked like in the first half, it seemed like you guys were in trouble because it seemed like you guys were turning over the ball quite a bit, but you definitely polished that up in the second half. What was the key behind that?
Yeah, it was. And we're traditionally a low turnover team, and we knew we were going to be aggressive. Some of it was just, they kind of rat and try and steal outlet passes. You always got to kind of be aware and locked into the game and knowing where they're at. They might not. A guy on their team may take a breather and not deny one possession, and then the very next possession they're jumping the passing lane. So we were much more careful with the ball, and we actually went to a little bit less passing in the second half and some more ball screening and driving and that way.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Once again, the Merrimack College men's basketball team defeats Fairleigh Dickinson tonight, 62-51. The Warriors will be back in action tomorrow afternoon against FDU at 4 o'clock. Coach, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.